The late summer air over Blackfern Ridge hung heavy with dust and the tang of iron, the quiet desperation of a town defined by labor and loss. Today was auction day, when worth was measured not by heart or courage, but by weight, breed, and utility. Livestock shifted uneasily in pens, cattle stomped and lowed, sheep pressed together in trembling flocks, and horses, the pride of local families, flicked tails and pinned ears, aware of the fate that awaited the unlucky. Among them, Fierro stood apart. Massive, broad-chested, and built to move earth itself, the draft horse carried the silent weight of years of labor and neglect. His chestnut coat was dulled by mud and sweat. His left face bore a jagged scar. The orbital bone healed grotesquely, leaving one eye sunken. Yet his right eye, dark, intelligent, unwavering, hinted at a spirit that had endured more than anyone guessed. Jed, the auctioneer, approached the pen, his usual confident flourish faltering at the sight. "Next up, Fierro," he said, voice tight. Still strong. Could pull heavy loads. With care. Whispers circled the crowd. "Half blind," someone muttered. "Too old to feed," another added. A woman who had once praised him sneered, "Just look at that face. Useless." Fierro did not react. He stood, immense and silent, absorbing the judgment like stones layering on years of neglect. Few saw beyond the scar. Few recognized that it marked courage, not failure. Silas, his owner, watched quietly, jaw tight. The horse had long been a liability, expensive feed, diminishing strength, and a presence that reminded him of past mistakes. Year after year, he had lowered Fierro's price, cutting into his own pride, hoping someone would relieve him of the burden. As the sun slanted toward the horizon, Jed shook his head. "No bids, Silas. They say he's a waste of pasture." Silas's lips pressed into a hard line. "If he isn't sold by sundown, I'll take care of him myself. For good." The words fell like a sentence. Fierro sensed them all, the dismissal, the finality, but he did not flinch. His scar was not a mark of weakness. It was proof of a deed no one remembered. Years ago, Silas had overloaded him with a wagon concealing 2 children. The wagon collapsed on a canyon slope. Fierro had slammed his body against the breaking wood, shielding the children from death, and taken the injury that twisted his face forever. Heroism had been rewritten as flaw. Now, under the harsh sun of auction day, Fierro faced judgment once more, unaware that history and instinct would soon demand their reckoning. Before the scar, before the whispered judgments and the cold calculus of profit, Fierro had been a different creature. In the early mornings of Blackfern Ridge, when dew still clung to the grass and the wind carried the scent of wet earth, he moved with a rhythm born of the land itself. Plows slid under his chest, wagons creaked but never faltered beneath him, and the children of the ridge would watch in awe as he hauled timber, hay, and grain with effortless power. Time and accident had left their mark. The jagged scar across his left face, the sunken eye, and the slight limp in his shoulder were souvenirs from the day he had saved Silas's children from a collapsing wagon. The town had rewritten the story. Clumsiness, misfortune, uselessness. Yet Fierro carried it with dignity, moving carefully, weighing his strength, and reserving his trust for those who deserved it. Daniela, Silas's daughter, was among the few. She had grown up alongside Fierro, learning his moods, his quirks, and his language of patience. She approached the pen now, small bundle of oats in hand, brushing her fingers along the rough wood. "Hey there, big guy," she whispered, her voice soft but steady. "You don't have to care what they say." Fierro lifted his massive head, nostrils flaring, ears pricked forward. His right eye, dark, intelligent, and unwavering, met hers. He shifted his weight closer, lowering his head slightly, inviting her hand. "You remember the good old days, huh?" Daniela continued, stroking his matted mane. "When we could ride along the ridge without a care. You were faster than anyone thought, stronger than anyone gave you credit for." He nuzzled her hand gently, a careful press of his massive muzzle against her palm. "I know you're tired," she said, voice catching, "but you've still got that fire. Don't let them forget it. Not yet." From the auction platform, Jed barked the usual announcements, and whispers circled the crowd. "Half-blind," muttered one. "Too old to feed," said another. Daniela flinched but did not look away from Fierro. "You're not useless," she said firmly. "You never were. Don't listen to them. You've always known better." Fierro lowered his head, letting the words settle in. In the past, he had been a living engine of the Ridge's work, moving with grace and intelligence, plowing fields, hauling wagons, and carrying children on his broad back. Now, even with age and injury, he still remembered every rhythm of that work, every lesson in care and precision. Daniela knelt at his feet, tilting her head against his massive chest. "I wish I could make him see you like I do," she murmured. "But he never listens, does he? Not Dad, not the auction. They'll never understand." A soft whinny escaped Fierro, a sound that spoke of recognition, patience, and trust. He was scarred, tired, and underestimated, but in his bond with Daniela, he found something stronger than fear: understanding, affirmation, and loyalty. "You'll be okay," she whispered again. "I'll always remember who you really are. The world might not, but I will." Fierro shifted, pressing closer, his one good eye glimmering in quiet acknowledgement. Even amidst the heat, the whispers, and the looming auction, there was a spark between them, a shared memory of past strength and enduring courage, a promise that neither time nor judgment could erase. Daniela lingered near the pen, hands still resting on Fierro's massive mane. She could feel his tension, the way his muscles coiled with the weight of years and the unease in the crowd. The auction was almost over, and she knew what her father had whispered earlier. "Dad," she called, stepping carefully toward Silas, who was tallying his papers on the auction platform. Her voice was steady, though her heart pounded. "Please, don't! Fierro doesn't deserve this. Give him more time. Someone will see what he is, what he's worth." Silas looked up sharply, jaw tight, eyes darkening. "Daniela, I've told you. That horse is useless. Half-blind, scarred, expensive to feed. He's been nothing but a burden for years." "But he's not useless," Daniela shot back, her hands clenching. "He's strong, smart, brave. You know what he did for me and Sam years ago. You can't just throw him away." Silas's face reddened. His hand slapped the ledger with a thud that silenced the murmuring crowd. "I've kept him around as long as reason allowed," he snapped. "Every day is a loss. You think sentiment changes the numbers? It doesn't, Daniela." Daniela's eyes filled with tears, but she did not waver. "I don't care about the numbers. He's alive, he's proud, he's worth saving." Silas ran a hand over his face, his voice dropping, tight with frustration. "You want him saved, huh? You want me to spare the useless giant?" He stepped closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. "Fine, then prove it. If you really want him alive, find an owner, someone willing to take on all the feed, all the work, all the trouble. Show me he's worth it." Daniela blinked, stunned. "You mean you won't just let him stay?" Silas shook his head. "No. You want him saved? Then save him yourself. Find someone who understands him. Someone willing to give him the life I've decided he no longer deserves." Her chest tightened with despair, but she nodded, determination flaring. I can do that. I'll find someone. I won't let him die." Silas's gaze softened for the briefest moment, just enough for Daniela to see the flicker of doubt behind his anger. Then he turned back to the auction, leaving her with Fierro, who nickered softly as if sensing the promise in her words. Daniela bent down, brushing the sweat and mud from his scarred face. "Don't worry, Fiyero. I'll figure it out. I won't let them decide your fate, not this time." Fiyero shifted his massive head, pressing it gently against her shoulder. Though the heat, the dust, and the whispers of the crowd weighed down on them, there was a thread of hope now. Thin, fragile, but unbroken. And Daniela knew one thing for certain. She would not fail him. Daniela did not sleep that night. The echoes of her father's challenge, find someone willing to take him, haunted her as she replayed the auction scene in her mind. Fiyero, enormous and scarred, had watched silently as always, his good eye following her every move. She could feel his patience, his quiet understanding, and she knew she had to act before Silas made good on his threat. Morning brought little relief. The auction pens were emptying, but the talk of Fiyero lingered like smoke. Daniela grabbed her satchel and slipped out, determined to seek help among the few neighbors and traders who might understand the horse's worth. First, she approached old Tom Harlan, the retired farmer who had once admired Fiyero's strength. He leaned on his cane, squinting at her over the early sunlight. "Tom," Daniela began, trying to steady her voice. "Please, Fiyero needs someone who can care for him. He's not useless. He's incredible. I can't let him die." Tom's face tightened. "Child. He's massive, scarred. Hard work even for a man half his age, you know that." "I know," she said, gripping the strap of her satchel. "But he's gentle with the right people. He's saved lives before. He can still do so much if he's given the chance." Tom sighed, shaking his head. "I'd take him if I could. But I'm too old, too feeble to manage him." Undeterred, Daniela moved from door to door, speaking with merchants, ranchers, and old friends of the family. Each shook their head politely, murmuring about feed costs, injuries, and risk. Fiyero's reputation, scarred and misunderstood, worked against her. By midday, Daniela returned to the auction pens, her shoulders heavy but not defeated. Fiyero's massive head rose when he saw her approach, his one good eye calm, trusting. "I'm not giving up, big guy," she said softly, kneeling beside him. "We'll find someone who sees you the way I do." He nickered, a soft, low sound that vibrated through the pen, and lowered his head, pressing against her shoulder. It was a language of trust and reassurance, a promise that no matter the skepticism of the world, they would face it together. As Daniela sat with him formulating new plans, letters to distant ranchers, appeals to traveling merchants, she realized the stubborn truth. Fiyero's worth was invisible to most, but it was not invisible to her. And that knowledge, small and unremarkable as it seemed, gave her courage. The sky, however, had begun to darken. Clouds gathered on the distant ridge, heavy and bruised. The wind picked up, carrying the first hint of rain. Daniela felt it before the others did, a subtle tension in the air. Fiyero shifted, hooves scraping the ground as if sensing it too. Daniela's hand lingered along his scarred cheek. "Whatever comes, big guy," she whispered, "we'll face it together. I promise." And in the stillness of the auction pens, beneath the thickening clouds, a quiet understanding passed between them. Judgment and danger might be coming, but courage, loyalty, and trust would not be broken. Not now, not ever. By late afternoon, clouds had thickened over Blackfern Ridge, swollen and dark with the promise of rain. The dry, dusty air had been replaced by the electric tang of a coming storm. Daniela returned to Fiyero's pen, fingers gripping his damp mane, heart tight. Her younger brother Sam was already along the canyon trail, chasing frogs and tossing stones into the creek as he often did, oblivious to the danger. "Sam, stay close," Daniela called. but the wind and distant rumble of thunder swallowed her words. He laughed, turning back only once before darting further toward the edge of the canyon, unaware of the storm brewing above. "Something's coming," Daniela whispered to Fierro, glancing toward the canyon. The horse's ears flicked, nostrils flaring as he inhaled the charged air. Memories of past heroism, the wagon collapse, the children he had saved, the pain he had endured, rippled through his massive, scarred body, every muscle tensed, every sinew ready. The storm hit with sudden violence. Sheets of rain hammered the ridge, turning the narrow canyon trail into a rushing, churning torrent. Rocks slicked with mud slid underfoot, and the creek swelled into a roaring brown river. Daniela's heart lurched as Sam's frantic voice pierced the deluge. "Help! Fierro!" Fierro stiffened, nostrils flaring, muscles coiling. Daniela leaned close. "Go, Fierro! Get him!" With a thunderous crack, he tore through the pen gate, splintering the rails. Rain plastered his chestnut coat to his frame, mud streaking his flanks. Lightning forked across the sky, illuminating the enormous, scarred figure as he plunged toward the torrent, navigating debris-strewn rocks with precision born of experience and instinct. Daniela ran alongside, shouting instructions, pointing to the safest footing, her own feet slipping in the mud. The wind lashed at her hair, rain stung her face, but she kept pace, heart pounding. Fierro reached Sam, lowering his massive head. The boy scrambled onto Fierro's broad back, clinging tightly to his neck. Daniela pressed close, steadying both of them. "Hold on. He's got you, Sam." Branches snapped under the wind, loose logs and mud surged past them, and the current tugged dangerously at Fierro's hooves. Each step was calculated, every motion a balance between force and care. A jagged plank struck Fierro's shoulder, but he shifted, absorbing the impact and shielding Sam from harm. Inch by agonizing inch, he pushed against the torrent, muscles rippling under the strain, hooves finding hidden purchase beneath the swirling water. The townspeople watched in stunned silence, some frozen in disbelief, some shouting encouragement, all realizing the truth. The useless giant, the half-blind, scarred draft horse they had mocked, was their only hope. Daniela sank to her knees beside him, brushing rain-soaked strands of mane from his eyes. "You did it, Fierro. You saved him. Again." At last, the far bank rose before them, a narrow stretch of solid ground. Fierro slowed, careful not to topple Sam. The boy scrambled off, shivering, soaked and trembling, but alive. Daniela knelt beside her brother, then pressed against Fierro, whispering, "You're safe now. No more judgment, no more fear. You're our hero." The storm still roared, the canyon still rumbled, but for this moment, life had been preserved by a horse who had long been underestimated, guided by the girl who had never stopped believing in him. When storm passed, leaving Blackfern Ridge muddy, drenched, and echoing with the roar of receding water, Daniela knelt beside Fierro, brushing his wet mane, heart still racing. Sam clung to her side, shivering, eyes wide with fear and awe. Silas stormed down the bank, mud caking his boots, chest heaving with anger. "What in God's name were you two thinking?" he barked, voice cutting through the damp air. "You could have been swept away. And that horse? This damned horse, he could have been killed trying to save you." Daniela stepped forward, voice firm despite her fear. "Fierro saved Sam, Dad. He carried him through the flood. He kept him alive." Silas's eyes blazed. "He's useless. That animal's always been a problem. He's too slow, too clumsy, too scarred. And now you've risked your lives because of him?" The townspeople, still gathering along the canyon rim, exchanged uneasy glances. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Then a voice, old Mr. Harkin, a farmer who had once bought Fierro's hay, spoke up. "Silas," he said, voice steady, carrying over the dripping landscape, "you're wrong. That horse didn't fail. He saved a boy's life, your boy's life. He faced the storm and the flood, and he brought him back safe. Another voice joined in. I saw it. Every step. That horse knew what he was doing. Enough of this denial, a third townsman added. You're blaming him for doing his duty? Do you see the truth, Silas, or are you too proud to admit it? Silas's jaw tightened. His hands trembled as he looked at Fierro, chest heaving, soaked, scarred, standing like a monument against the storm's chaos. The reality hit him. The horse he had long dismissed, the horse he had almost condemned, had performed a hero's work in plain view. Daniela's voice softened, pleading now. Dad, Fierro has always been more than you saw. Please, don't let your pride destroy him. He's not useless. He's a hero. Silas's hands fell to his sides, trembling slightly. He looked at Fierro, soaked, exhausted, yet impossibly steadfast. And the weight of years he had ignored, dismissed, or denied pressed down on him like a stone. His chest tightened, guilt and awe warring in his heart. He began, voice rough, faltering, as if the words were unfamiliar in his own mouth. He swallowed hard, eyes flicking from Daniela to Sam, then back to the horse who had risked everything for them. I've been blind to what you've always been, to everything you've done for this family. His throat tightened, and for a moment he could say no more. Fierro shifted slightly, his great head lowering just enough to meet Silas's gaze, dark, intelligent eyes holding the calm of understanding. Daniela knelt beside him, hand trembling as it ran along his neck, feeling both the exhaustion etched into every muscle and the steadfast strength that had never faltered, even when the world had ignored it. The townspeople murmured, soft and awed, as the realization spread through them. The useless giant they had ridiculed, the scarred, half-blind horse, had displayed courage, intelligence, and loyalty far beyond any human expectation. Silas's fingers brushed through Fierro's wet mane, tentative at first, then with growing reverence. His shoulders slumped as the years of stubborn pride and cold calculation fell away. You've saved more than just my son today, he whispered, voice barely audible over the dripping storm. You've saved me, too, from my own blindness. For the first time, Silas saw him, not as a burden, not as a liability, not as a scarred tool, but as a being of quiet heroism, patience, and unshakable devotion. And for the first time, he felt true gratitude, raw and unguarded, toward the horse who had always deserved it. The storm had passed, but its aftermath left Blackfern Ridge unsettled. Mud clung to boots, the canyon trail was scarred, and the air was thick with wet, earthy tension. The townspeople lingered along the bank, whispering among themselves, still processing the sight of Fierro, massive, soaked, scarred, yet utterly unbroken. One by one, neighbors stepped forward. Mrs. Calder, who had once mocked Fierro's scar, reached out to lay a trembling hand on his flank. I never should have laughed at him, she admitted softly. He's braver than any of us. The murmurs grew into a chorus of acknowledgement. Farmers who had scoffed at Silas's stubborn refusal to sell him admitted quietly that they had underestimated the horse's strength and intelligence. Children, wide-eyed and dripping from the storm, clung to Daniela's skirts, asking endless questions about Fierro's courage. Silas stood apart at first, still processing the gravity of what had just occurred. Daniela remained at his side, urging him gently, Dad, he's more than a horse. He's always been a part of this family. And now, everyone knows it. He looked down at Fierro, chest still heaving, muscles trembling from the exertion, but eyes bright with calm intelligence. The truth he had long avoided now blazed before him in undeniable clarity. You're right, Silas said finally, voice low and heavy with conviction. This ends today. No more judgments, no more dismissals. he stays. He's ours. A ripple of relief spread through the crowd. Fiero's ears flicked as if acknowledging the pronouncement. Daniela knelt beside him, hands steadying his massive head. "See, big guy? You're finally safe. And everyone knows who you are." Silas turned to the townspeople, his face sober but resolute. "I've been wrong about him, about pride, about utility, about what matters. This horse, this scarred, stubborn, incredible horse, has shown all of us what courage truly is." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. "From now on, we measure worth differently, by deeds, by loyalty, by heart, not by ledger books or appearances." The townspeople nodded, some wiping rain from their faces, others hugging their children a little tighter. The lesson had been seared into everyone's memory. The useless giant had proven himself in ways no human could have anticipated. Daniela placed a gentle hand along Fiero's scarred cheek. "You've always been a hero," she whispered. "Now the world knows it too." Fiero nuzzled her hand, then turned slowly to survey the townspeople, his dark, intelligent eye calm and steady. For the first time in years, he felt no judgment, no doubt, only recognition. The horse, who had once been dismissed, scorned, and nearly condemned, had earned not just survival, but reverence. Silas, kneeling beside him, whispered apologies again, softer this time, filled with humility and devotion. "I'll never fail you again, Fiero. Never." And in that moment, amidst the dripping trees, the scarred canyon, and the lingering echoes of the storm, Blackfern Ridge understood something profound. True heroism does not demand recognition, but it always leaves a mark that cannot be ignored. Fiero, the scarred draft horse once labeled useless, had finally claimed his place, not as a tool, not as a burden, but as a living testament to courage, loyalty, and endurance. Weeks passed, and the memory of the storm, the flood, and Fiero's heroism settled over Blackfern Ridge like a permanent reminder. The town worked together to repair the canyon trail, shoring up the banks, replacing splintered boards, and marking the dangerous edges with care. Every plank, every stone, every hand that lifted debris carried the weight of gratitude and newfound respect for the horse who had saved a life. Fiero rested in a spacious, well-built stable, receiving the care he had never known. Silas oversaw everything himself: fresh straw bedding, careful feeding, and daily grooming that soothed sore muscles and joints stiffened with age. Daniela visited constantly, brushing his mane, whispering stories of the town's admiration, and speaking softly to him about his courage. "See, Fiero," she said one afternoon, Sam peering over her shoulder. "Everyone's talking about you. You saved me, you saved him, and now everyone knows." Fiero nudged her gently with his massive head, leaning into her hands as if understanding every word. Sam laughed nervously, still shaken from the flood. I can't believe he did all that," he said, stroking the scar across Fiero's face. He's amazing." Silas watched them, a lump in his throat. I don't deserve him," he admitted quietly, brushing the horse's wet mane with rough but reverent hands. Daniela looked up at him. "Dad, he doesn't need us to deserve him. He just needs us to see him for who he really is." The townspeople, transformed by what they had witnessed, began to treat every animal with more patience and respect. They shared Fiero's story widely, teaching children about courage, loyalty, and the quiet heroism often hidden behind scars and imperfection. The phrase "useless giant" fell away, replaced with reverent acknowledgement. A creature whose worth could not be measured in labor or feed, but in heart and deeds. At the center of town, where the auction block had once stood, a place of cold judgment, a new monument was erected. Local artisans sculpted Fiero in bronze, enormous and lifelike. every muscle and sinew carefully rendered. The scar across his face was not hidden. It was a badge of honor, a testament to heroism unrecognized for far too long. His intelligent dark eyes seemed to watch over the town, calm and steady, a symbol of endurance and courage. A plaque read simply, "Fierro, the useless giant, the town's hero. His scars tell a story we refuse to see. May we never again judge worth by appearances alone." Silas stood before the statue, Daniela holding his arm, Sam clinging to his other side. "I failed him," Silas whispered, voice thick. "But I'll spend every day making it right." Daniela smiled gently, leaning her head toward her father. "We can do it together," she said. Sam pressed his small hand against Fierro's massive flank. "He saved me. He saved all of us." Fierro, older now, slower but still dignified, nudged Silas and the children gently, acknowledging their devotion with quiet nudges and soft nickers. He had become not just a protector, but a teacher and a living example of courage, the heart of the family, and the soul of Blackfern Ridge. Even after Fierro's death years later, the town remembered him. Children played near his statue, retelling the story of the flood rescue and the wagon accident. Parents spoke of patience and recognition, teaching the next generation to look beyond scars and appearances. The town, once quick to judge and slow to honor, had been changed forever. Fierro's life, once at risk of neglect and dismissal, became a permanent lesson in empathy, courage, and unseen sacrifice. A reminder that true heroism is often quiet, hidden, and revealed only when the moment demands it. The useless giant had earned his place, not only in Blackfern Ridge, but in every heart that learned his story. Thank you for listening. If this horse story stayed with you, feel free to like, subscribe, and explore more stories on the channel. Until next time.